What's up, everybody? This is Flaw, aka Dushku, the Shadow Priest on Faralina, formerly of Benediction. Since I'm starting to post more videos about boss kills and fights and things like that, I wanted to go over the Shadow Priest itself a little bit, kind of give you an idea of what I'm working with, where I'm at, add-ons and rotations and things like that. So if you're looking to play a Shadow Priest or perhaps improve your parses as a Shadow Priest, this video may help. So the first thing I want to do, and this is my Twitch channel here where you can find additional videos, Twitch TV/Flaw with a 4 as the A. You can find videos with boss kills for current content and future content as that comes out, obviously. But what I wanted to show you first is just the kind of the basics of the Shadow Priest, my UI, my weak auras, my bar layout, things like that, so you can kind of set yourself up to be a better, more efficient player anyway, so you can have things more readily accessible. One of the biggest things you can always set up quickly is your keybinds and your macros. So if you notice that my keybinds do show here, and I like to show those just for videos for that sake. So now you can see, control 1, 1, 2, 3, things like that. They're all right there. That kind of makes it easier to see which buttons I'm pressing during the fight. I also have certain macros set up. If you guys want those macros or need information on those macros, I'm happy to provide them in the description. But you can see here, for example, control 3 is my trinkets, and that'll pop one trinket and then the other. I'm using Icon of the Silver Crescent and Dark Iron Smoking Pipe. So obviously those are the best trinkets in the game right now. Some people may say use Eye of Magtheridon, some people may say use Quag's Eye. I have both. From what I've seen, my damage is always higher on any particular boss fight when I run these two manually. If it's a lot taking over a new class or starting a new class, and the trinkets is obviously the least of your concerns, I would just bind your trinkets to one of your spells. That way you're always popping trinkets. You're gonna fall off a little bit compared to people who control their trinkets, but you will still parse much higher than the people who forget to use their trinkets during a fight. So I heavily recommend, if you have trouble using them, just bind it to a spell. You'll be all set. Excuse me. So for the first thing I have here, you can see that I kind of cleaned up my bars. I wanted to make it as minimal as possible, so I can have more action on the screen, and when I'm looking at something, it's efficient as to what I'm looking at. So I got my tiny thread here, I got my damage done for the details here. My spells, obviously my bread and butter, these 4 spells right here, from Vampiric Touch to Shadow Word Death, and then I have my Mind Flay right down here as well. My trinkets, obviously I use them quite a bit. I don't actually use the bubble here, I use it on my Voodoo. And Voodoo is great for stuff like this. If you want to bubble yourself, I just scroll mouse wheel down, I get a quick bubble. If I think you've seen on the trash in SSC where I start healing people immediately when there's a poison after one of the overgrown guys, the plant walker guys that can spit out poisons, and that's just a mouse button right there where I can click that and start healing people and make that really efficient. It kicks me out of shadow form automatically, so it's really nice to have. So for add-ons, I have quite a few. I'm not going to go into all of them, but I will go into the ones that are most important, or the ones I feel as though they're most important. Obviously, you need to have some sort of threat meter up. Shadow Priest can pull a lot of threat, especially when we start using Vampiric Embrace. So keeping an eye on threat for certain bosses, and you see me pull threat on bosses quite a bit in some of my videos. Or get very close to it, and I'm kind of keeping an eye on this tiny threat. I have my Shadow Fiend, and this is macroed with Kibler's Bits, so that your Shadow Fiend will actually get an attack power increase, and those Kibler Bits will just give you a little bit more mana back. It's like 200 to 300 or something like that. You can find out more in the Shadow Priest Discord or forums or something like that, but it does give you a bit more damage done. I have my Inner Focus, and since I'm undead, that's actually paired up with Devouring Plague. They're both in the same button. So if I go down here to somebody and I hit Shift G and Shift G again, you see Devouring Plague is now up on this guy. And that's just hitting Shift G twice, so it makes it really easy. And I can hit Shift 3 there, that pops a trinket, and you can see my weak auras pop up. As soon as I'm out of combat, my weak auras go away, so I apologize for that. But if you want, you can see it on my trinket menu. This one has 10 seconds left, and if I'm in combat, then that'll pop up right there right away. So just to kind of show you that weak aura, that's what it looks like. When I'm in combat, when it's going on, you have the countdown for how long your trinket has, and obviously it'll flash when it's available, which is really nice. My cast bar is down here, and that's for clipping Mind Flays. As a Shadow Priest, you do sometimes clip a Mind Flay. So if you want to cast your next spell, that guy's going to die too quick, you would cast it. Let me try a different one real quick. You would cast it right there if your Mind Blast or something like that was up. So that's a very, very important one, I feel like, especially if you clip your Mind Flays a little too quickly, which is one of the biggest causes of DPS losses for Shadow Priest, especially once you get the rotation down. That can really help you out. I also have, besides that cast bar there, I'm also using Knott's TBC Shadow Priest Weak Aura, and that just gives you your cooldown timers. Not really super important. I don't really keep an eye on these. I might actually look to get rid of this, but it is nice and neat, kind of right there for you. But more importantly, what I use is these, and these are the multiple dot timers for the Shadow Priest. And as you can see, I can keep track of multiple dots. That way, in a lot of fights, for example, Kael'thas, when you're dotting all the bosses during Phase 3, you can reapply dots very quickly, especially right before they fall off. And that way you're maximizing your DPS. The more dots you have up, the more damage you're going to do. So you can see my multiple dots there and how that kind of works out. Lastly, we use the nets for Vash. It's not really that important, but it is nice to kind of have that. The Vash net tracker, and that goes right there. You guys can see that during my Vash fights. That's there as well. So that kind of gives you a little bit of an overview as to the weak auras and to the add-ons that I'm using. One more that you see right here is Ice HUD. And Ice HUD is one I've just used forever, so it's hard for me to tear myself away from it. Keeps track of my health and my mana. It also keeps track, if you're a hunter or something like that, it'll keep track of your pets. So for example, if I go down here and I drop my G for my Shadow Fiend, you can see this is my Shadow Fiend's health and mana now. And then obviously as the mob dies, the target's health is right there as well. And that's just another good indicator I can keep an eye on of everybody's health and mana. You use the add-on for a little bit, you get used to which spots where, and so it's a lot easier to disseminate. I love it. I've always used it. I made them see-through, but you can make them several different colors, shapes, whatever you want. Like I said, it's one of my favorite. Trinket menu, I'm probably going to get rid of, honestly, because I have my weak aura here, and because I have my one button here to use it. It really doesn't serve any purpose anymore. If I'm doing PvP or something, it's nice to have, but it's not super important. And I wanted to show you this real quick. These are my logs. So obviously I'm not, an orange parser on every fight. I'm not the best Shadow Priest in the game by any means. I would consider myself an above average player, but no, I'm no Superman or super sweaty or anything like that. My medium parses, could be higher, but I also don't get a shaman every single raid. And obviously my damage output is going to be hampered without having a Shadow Priest and just going against Shadow Priests that do. I also, if you want to look at the gear, don't have Absolute Bis in every slot. Once again, that's just going to disadvantage you a little bit to other Shadow Priests. But for the most part, I got good gear, I got a good rotation, and I got a good team behind me, or with me, I should say, that really pump and do the correct cooldowns and debuffs, and that really helps me excel as a Shadow Priest. And having a good team and a quick kill is going to help your parses no matter what. So that gives you, like I said, a little bit about the Shadow Priests, for me anyway, my cooldowns, my weak auras, and my add-ons. I want to talk a little bit about rotation now. What's the best rotation? Is it Vampiric Touch and Shadow Word Pain? Is it vice versa? Honestly, I don't think it fucking matters. You can go either way with it. And probably, it's not going to affect, you being a top parser or you being a gray parser. I'll tell you that much. There may be a minimal difference. If there is, it doesn't matter. I'm from the school of thought that I like to share GCDs as much as possible, and so I want to start off the fight that way as well. So the very first spell I'm going to cast is going to share GCD with Shadow Word Pain. So I'm going to go Vampiric Touch, Shadow Word Pain in the same button. You see that's on the same GCD. This level 61 mob has resisted my Vampiric Touch, so obviously I'm going to put that up. And Vampiric Touch is a spell that you should always have up. It's the most important spell in your spell book. Look, as Shadow Priest, sure, we're good DPS, but that's not our function. We're a utility class. We're a utility class that can pump and do good damage, but you will never beat a good hunter. You're never going to beat a good warlock. You're never going to beat a good mage, ever, in this game, for the rest of the expansions. Not until maybe Wrath of the Lich King or something like that. So play your class correctly. You are utility, and your biggest utility are these two spells, Vampiric Touch, Vampiric Embrace. That is why you are brought to raids. You're not brought to raids because you're a mid-performing DPS. That's not it. So play your class, make sure these spells are up as much as you can have them. I don't use Vampiric Brace all the time. I mean, if I'm in a mage group and the ranged isn't taking any damage, for instance, phase 1 of Alar, there's no point in having Vampiric Embrace up. I mean, who are you healing? You're just overhealing nothing. You're generating additional threat for the birds that come in, and you guys can actually see that on my post-nerf Alar fight, that I pick up a bird DPS, or a bird right away on top of me, and that's because I have this Vampiric Embrace up healing. Your mana regeneration is going to potentially generate threat as well, but it's more of you just healing yourself and then you healing your group that actually generates a threat. The Shadow Priest Discord will say that Vampiric Touch and Shadow Word Pain do not generate any additional threat, and that's probably true. So it's really more of the healing that's actually, you know, causing the threat on you. So if you don't have Vampiric Embrace up, for instance, on a fight like Void Reaver, especially if you have tanks that aren't high threat or high DPS, you want to avoid using Vampiric Embrace because you will be on the top. I mean, even in my raid where we have really good tanks, really good healers, really good DPS, I still pull threat on Void Reaver, and that's because I use Vampiric Embrace. Like I said, I wanted to show you guys a couple of other things real quick and a couple of other examples of DPS and DPS rotation. So this is Alar. So Alar is a fight where you really get to pump at the start. As long as you're positioned well, you can really go in. So I'm just going to start this video, and this is from my Twitch. So it is a video I just recently posted. It's on YouTube as well. And as you can see, as soon as Alar comes up, my first spell is Vampiric Touch. Then I'm going to go right into Shadow Word Pain as well. You can see that on my dot timers. My next spell, as soon as those 2 dots are up, are Mind Blast, followed with a Shadow Word Death, sharing the same GCD again. Once again, very important to try to get these spells into a single GCD as possible, because that's what's going to have you have the highest actions per minute, and that's what's going to cause you to have more DPS. The more stuff you're doing that's damage, the more, obviously, the higher your parses are going to be, the more damage you do. So once again, sharing those 2 GCDs, I go, let me turn this back off. I go Vampiric Touch to Shadow Word Pain, 1 GCD, and then I go Mind Blast to Shadow Word Death, that's 2 GCDs. Then from there, I can either work in my Devouring Plague, Inner Focus macro, I can pop a Trinket. If Bloodlust has been activated, I can pop a Destruction Potion. Obviously, you need to adapt to the situation a little bit, but it gives you a lot more base damage, and it also gives you time to consider what your next spell is going to be, because those should always be your first 4 spells. Morgrim, and there's a couple exceptions. As you play Shadow Priest, you can make exceptions here and there, but those should be your first 4 spells. So I'm going to go back to my screen capture real quick and show you this. So we just put up the 2 dots and the 2 spells, and now we're Mind Flaying Alar. And I have this set to 50% speed just so I can kind of talk you through it. So the Mind Flay goes off, and I then put up my Devouring Plague, so that's when that goes up. And once again, I talked about the importance of having Vampiric Embrace up, Vampiric Touch up, I'm sorry. And I actually casted it a little bit early there, but it's more important to cast it early than to let it fall off. You obviously really want to let it run as far down as possible before you put it back up, because you're just clipping your own dots and you're wasting mana if you put it up too early, but don't ever let it fall off. That's the reason you're in the raid, is this spell. So it's very important that you have Vampiric Embrace up. I'm sorry, I keep calling it Vampiric Embrace. Vampiric Touch up every fight, all the time. Even on trash, prior to the nerf, I would put this up, as well as Shadow Word Pain, on every single trash mob. Now that the mobs are dying a bit faster, I'm going to have to reconsider my dots a little bit. I don't really know what the answer is there yet. If I figure it out, you guys want to know, I'll give you that information. But for the most part, any bosses, any mobs that last longer than 15 to 20 seconds, you're going to want to put both dots up, and you're going to want to have Vampiric Touch up as soon as possible. By the way, for those of you with a school that Shadow Word Pain should go up first and then Vampiric Touch should go up second, that's perfectly okay. The reason is because the first dot of Shadow Word Pain isn't going to tick until Vampiric Touch is already up. And what's the whole point as a DPS or as a Shadow Priest is to make sure that all your spells are cast while Vampiric Touch is up. So since that ticks after the spell's been put up, you're still generating mana for the raid. That's why I said it doesn't really matter which way you go. I just like to share GCDs as much as possible. So we're going to go back into this fight. So, and I'm going to speed it up a little bit here too now that you've seen the initial spells that are being used. Speed that up. So, as I continue to cast, I'm putting my Mind Flays up. Oh, I actually want to show you that one part right there real quick. That's really, really important. And I talked about this earlier. So when I said I clip my Mind Flays, this is what I'm talking about. So as you can see right down here, I have my Mind Flay tracker, and that's my first tick, that's my second tick. But as you guys can see, I have Mind Blast coming up, right. Oh, sorry, I actually went back a little too far. So here we go. This is the one I'm talking about. So right here, I have Mind Blast coming up, and this is actually about half a second, and then that's going to tick right over to there. There's no reason to get off the full Mind Flay. If you're in a good raid or decent raid, you should have plenty of mana. If you need to pop mana potions, do so. If you need to pop dark runes, do so. You should have both of those every single raid. Your mana is all your DPSers' mana, and if you run out of mana, they're going to start running out of mana as well. So it's important that you have mana the entire fight. If you've done the fight, you're comfortable with the mana that you're generating, and you can keep up that mana for the entire fight, then use Destruction Potions. Destruction Potions are really where it's going to separate your parses apart from other people, and you're actually generating even that much more mana for your casters. They're going to feel super confident where they are, and you guys maybe have even heard that in a couple of the other raid videos where the people in my group are like, holy crap, out of Shadow Priest, I'm not running out of any mana. That's because I'm pumping, and I'm going as hard as I can. So, once again, screen capture's on. So right here, as soon as this ticks over into the second tick, I'm going to go right back into Mind Blast and Shadow Word Death. And that's really how you optimize your damage. There's a tick, there's Mind Blast coming right afterwards, Shadow Word Death as well, you know, some pretty decent numbers. And then I need to make sure that my dots are put back up, so I'm going to finish this Mind Flay. And then boom, Shadow Word Pain on the second tick. Alar starts moving. And obviously I adjust. On this fight, you should be between platforms 2 and 3. 1 and 6 don't exist anymore with the post-nerf world of SSC and TK. So you don't have to worry about those. So set yourself between 2 and 3. You saw the minimum amount of steps I had to move there in order to start DPSing again, and you're good to go. So that's one example of spell rotation and how I like to cast my spells. That's my optimal spell rotation. Let me show you one that's a little bit different. So this is Morgrim, okay? Morgrim is a fight where we pull him to us rather than we start where he's at or we go to him. Because there is that gap of him running to the tank, but as a Shadow Priest, once again, you want to maximize your throughput and your DPS, you're going to start casting spells before the boss even gets to the tank. The important thing is that you cast the right spells, right? So like I said, I'm going to go right into this fight and show you. As soon as he's pulled, I have already put up, I'm getting in range, I'm waiting a little bit. I actually popped my trinket first, which is what you absolutely should do. And then I put up Shadow Word Pain. So you can see Shadow Word Pain is the first spell I cast. That's actually not my traditional spellcasting order, right? That's because I'm running to get in place. So you can, because it's an instant cast, you can get that dot up there, finish the spot that you want to get to or find your raid group, and then you can start casting your other dots. And you'll see what I do with this one is I actually put 3 dots up before I actually start going into Mind Blast and the spells that do generate threat. One important thing to remember is that Mind Blast does generate additional threat. It is a threat-heavy spell, just kind of like Searing Pain is for Warlocks in that regard. So then I put up my Vampiric Dutch, and now I've put up, so I have 3 dots up before I've cast any other spell. Mind Blast, Shadow Word Death, they're still both readily available. Those are going to be the next spells I cast. But look how much threat Advocate already has before I start casting any spells. You guys don't even see me really on the threat meters at all because I haven't done any damage yet. But I got my 3 dots up. Now I'm going to start pumping, and I apologize for the quality. I'm working on the encoder stuff with this, but you can see that I start creeping up. I'm already 3rd in DPS, 3rd in threat. And then I move back down, you know, I'll adjust here and there. But that obviously, that threat generation is going to come with Mind Blast, and it's also going to come with Vampiric Embrace. I got it right this time. Vampiric Embrace, you guys can see I have a little scrolling heal text right here. This is just the heals that I'm putting back into the group. It doesn't actually show the mana. I don't have an add-on for that. There probably is one. I don't really care. I know my guys are getting plenty of mana. It doesn't matter what number it is. But I do like to see the heals. And this is a carryover from when I used to be a healer. I just never got rid of it. But it's still kind of nice to have to see how much heals I'm putting out there, especially with bigger crits. So like I said, I mean, if you guys have been watching this, it's my normal rotation. I do make mistakes. Everybody does. There's no issue with that. As long as you can try to eventually get corrected back into your normal rotation, which is 2 dots up, Mind Blast, Shadow Word Death, Mind Flay until Mind Blast is back up, and then clip Mind Flay if you need to, but only after the 2nd tick. So there's 1 tick, there's 2 ticks, and then right there is if Mind Blast was available where I would have clipped it. You also find sometimes that you actually I've just finished a mind flay, and there's probably half a second until your shadow word, until your mind blast is available. Just wait that half second. Don't start casting another mind flay, because all you're going to do is you're going to put all your spells back on GCD, and that additional second, even though it's just a second, is a huge amount of time that you're not casting any spells when you have spells ready to cast, especially Mind Blast. You want to get that out because that is your biggest... it's not your biggest damage coefficient, actually. If you guys want to know the truth, Shadow Word Pain is your biggest damage coefficient, but Mind Blast is that big, nice, crit, chunky number, you know, and it looks satisfying when you get it up there. Plus, it does do a lot of damage. That's kind of why it's on a cooldown. Imagine if Mind Blast didn't have a cooldown. You would out DPS Warlocks, I'm pretty sure. But it does, and you don't. So, that's, like I said, I wanted to show you that example on Morgrim of when you would cast things out of order like that. Another good example would be Void Reaver. If you guys do the train method where you all run into the middle and you stack on your tank, you can put up Shadow Word Pain, you can put up Devouring Plague, then you can stand in your spot, put up Vampiric Touch, and start casting everything else. And all you've done is you've given the other tanks that much longer to generate that much more threat. And if you're pumping, you're eventually going to get out of the top of that list, and you're probably going to die, especially if you have Vampiric Embrace up. A couple options you have is to just go ahead and accept your fate and die, which I do, but typically there's like 5 seconds left in the fight if that's the case. You can cast Fade, which I failed to do last week, and obviously that'll drop it, but casting Fade is a GCD, and once again, you're all about the business of managing your GCDs as much as possible. If you guys have any other questions, or there's anything else that you guys want to talk about, feel free to leave a comment. I'm in the Shadow Priest Discord. My name is Dushku there as well, so if you guys find yourself in there, feel free to say hi to me. I love looking at logs, so if you guys ever want to look at want me to go over logs with you. And by the way, so right here, Warcraft logs passed, and that's just everything that was on Benediction. So if you click that, you guys can go in, you guys can look at the fights. The best way to improve as a Shadow Priest is go look at someone who does a better job than you, who has higher numbers than you. Go into any one of their parses, go to replay, and just watch what they do during that fight. You can click on their name, and then you can hit play, and you see that's me right here. You can see what I'm doing, what my spell rotations are. You guys can go in further, you guys can analyze, you can look at timelines. You know, select me as the friendly Dushku, and you can see, you know, damage done. You can see exactly what time I cast what spell, where I'm sharing GCDs at, all that kind of stuff is right there, and that's really how I've gotten better as a Shadow Priest, and that's how you obviously can improve as well. So if you guys, like I said, have any more questions, feel free to leave a comment, subscribe, I'd appreciate it. If you guys want to know more about Shadow Priest or see more future videos, I'm working on getting my video processing software and my bit rates and all that stuff up to date. The first batch I did uploaded on YouTube kind of looked like crap. But yeah, otherwise, hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks a lot for watching.